Hello, here at Vision on TV we've been covering the hunger strike which has now been going on for 6 weeks in Yarlswood Immigration Detention Centre in the UK, where a group of women decided to refuse food for that long period of time. They've now temporarily suspended that hunger strike in the hope that their demands will be realised by both the Home Office and the management of that detention centre. I'm here with Adeline Trude from Bail for Immigration Detainees. I think what most of our viewers will be shocked by is the fact that not only adult women and men go through this detention system, but also around 1,000 children a year are put through this system. Could you tell us how on earth they get there?
Well, children who are subject to immigration control in the UK can be detained on the same basis as adults. They can be detained theoretically indefinitely without any form of judicial oversight at all. Let's not forget that people who are in immigration detention, and that's including children, are not detained there because they've committed any sort of crime. They're simply detained for the administrative convenience of the Home Office. The Home Office generally gives two reasons for detaining children with their families. One is that their removal from the UK is imminent, and the second reason is that there's a risk that they might abscond if they know they're about to be removed from the country.
How likely is that?
There's really no evidence at all that families are at any risk of absconding. And at BID we would say quite the contrary, that their community ties, the education for kids, their healthcare needs and their wish to stay in the UK and their need to keep in touch with the Home Office really means that they're going to stay in touch with the Home Office and report and so on.
But the assumption is that this family would run away because they are in fear of deportation.
Yeah, but there's no evidence for that. It's a reason that the Home Office routinely uses, but there's absolutely no evidence at all.
How long can these kids be inside?
It varies. Some are detained just for a few days, some for a matter of weeks, some for up to 3 or 4 months. Some of the research that we've carried out recently shows that about half of families are detained more than once. So with their accumulated detention time, the average time I think is about 6.5 weeks.
And what's the age range?
Babies are detained, about 50% are under the age of 5. I think 85% are under the age of 11. So there are some really quite small kids in these detention centres.
And what kind of effects does that have on these children?
There's a lot of evidence now, both internationally and in the UK, clinical evidence as well as anecdotal evidence, that the process of immigration detention is really quite harmful to children and their parents, to children particularly in terms of their mental and their physical health. The sort of things that we're talking about in terms of their mental health are depression, anxiety, fear of the process, fear of the people around them, which is not surprising when you consider how these families are taken into detention, very often picked up from home with no warning, at the crack of dawn and forced to gather a few possessions within the space of a few minutes and get dressed in front of Home Office staff. There's evidence that children in detention are developing behavioural problems. Physical problems include things like loss of weight, bedwetting is also a very common thing, and developmentally children start to regress after a fairly short period of time in detention. Parents generally report very severe psychological stress. I mean, I've talked to people who are detained even with their adult children sometimes, who, particularly fathers, who report terrible distress at not being able to take responsibility for their families and care for them properly. And all of that affects their ability to parent their children. So it's very serious, the effects are very damaging.
Well, I want to pick up on this because according to the Home Office it's really not that bad. Meg Hillier, the responsible minister, says there are registered, and I quote, There are registered on-site counsellors who work with children and their families, taking a holistic approach to meet the family's needs. Is that your experience?
Well, I talked to our family workers about that very paragraph, and they weren't aware of these on-site counsellors. What is laid on for families are social workers who do welfare assessments for the UK Border Agency, which is something slightly different, I think, from a sort of confidential, emotional counselling, which is what's implied in that letter.
If people are appalled by this situation, Adeline, what should they do about it?
Well, with the Children's Society, BID is taking part in a campaign called Outcry. It's part of our ongoing work to lobby for the end of the detention of children. There are actions that people can take. If they Google Outcry, they'll come across it. They can go to our website. It's really very simple. The government could end the immigration detention of children tomorrow, if it wanted to.
So if you'd like to get involved in a campaign to stop this happening to young people in this country, please go to the link below.